Hey guys, I realized that video, the live session was a little bit too long, so I'm just going to go through here and give you step by step with markers so you can follow along easily. This is just me making the avatar, which is step one in this process, and you should know now how to create avatars in Daz3d. You can go ahead and watch the live version. And you'll see a little bit more of it, but the live version is really long, so I will also put timestamps in the long version of this workflow. So right now I'm creating the avatar, and basically what I'm doing is just giving her some facial features that I like and adjusting her height accordingly. And all of this is done before any animation is put up, before any keyframes are done. So this is the first step in the Daz to Blender workflow. So we really don't have to spend a lot of time on this part of the workflow, but as you can see, basically I'm talking you through some of the key points of avatar creation and some of my things that I do to create avatars. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and recreate some of her facial features, and I'm going to navigate around and just show you some of the different parameters that I use in order to make avatar ready FBXs for CLO3D and for Blender. So at the end of this video you will see the finished render. Like I said in my longer video, I don't do too many changes to the face. I just kind of give her fuller lips and bigger eyes, and there are certain avatar packs that have the sliders that I use, which is Imani, Honey, and Akira. And I just go ahead and adjust them accordingly, and that gives her some of the features that are more pleasing to me personally. So that is that in creating the avatar. I'll let you ride out and watch this, and if you have any questions, put it in the comments below. Okay, so this is the next step, adding the animation. Basically, you want to go ahead and give yourself the A pose animation, which is a static bone and a block, and you do that by right-clicking onto the animate to timeline, and it will ask you what you want to do, and that's where you create your A pose. You can rename the block A pose just so that you know exactly what the block is for instead of unnamed. This is your auto adjust bar, so it will adjust with your animations. So just make sure you right click on that and click auto adjust. Some animations are keyframe animations and some animations are anablocks. This animation is pretty much a keyframe animation, but we're going to be using anablocks in the Animate 2 timeline. If you scroll over them, you can kind of see that they are, you can preview them in that way if you just roll over them. So you can get really crazy with the animations that come within Daz, but I have all my catwalk animations saved in a separate folder. So we're going to try some of those out. And we are going to then balance out the animation and make sure everything is on the same level plane. As you can see, this one is kind of going up a little bit. So I'm going to pick and choose animations that work together. As I said in the longer video, animations are created by different vendors and they use different parameters. And so there's really no way to kind of tell if they're going to work together or not. So it is a trial and error. I like to go ahead and use a walking forward animation for this practice. And then I'm going to make her just give a little stance and then turn around and combine all of the animations together. So I'll let you guys watch that. And if you want to skip to the next thing, please follow the markers in the timeline. Thanks. So now we're going to go ahead to the next step, which is baking our animation now that we've got all of our blocks. So basically you right click on the blank bar and you bake your animation. If you haven't watched other animation videos, you can watch some of my previous videos that talk about animation and how to bake them into the timeline. Basically right now I'm going to go ahead and save this FBX, and the FBX is the part that goes into CLO3D. So you have to select all of the bones and assets that are underneath the avatar, and those are called child assets. So if you right click on your Genesis figure in your menu, you'll see that the pop-up comes up to select all and select all children, so that you have all the bones saved with the FBX. You will know that your FBX is finished when you basically see the status bar disappear, and then you know that you've gone through all of your FBX and you can move on to the next phase. So the next phase is using the Daz3d Blender Bridge. So if you want to know where to find the Daz3d Blender Bridge, on the home page, if you scroll all the way down, you will find the bridges and all the platforms that are integrated for Daz3d, and you can go ahead and start to upload that and import and install it into Daz and into Blender, and then you can go ahead and use the export button here, which I'm going to just click on that. It's a one-click process. The menu will pop up to export Genesis 3 or 8, and you have everything still selected from your FBX export previously done, and then you're going to go ahead and leave the subdivision at 0 and click all your morphs that you made previously when creating your avatar, and you're going to just check all of the boxes and just make sure that everything is checked and you should be fine. Okay, so just hit accept, and this will go ahead and do the same type of a download for as it did for FBX, but it's actually going to import everything coded the correct way to get all of your materials and everything into Daz3d, as well as your morphs and your animations. And then we're going to go ahead and open up Blender. Everything is exported into Blender. We're going to open up Blender, and that is going to be our next step. So once you're in Blender, you're going to go ahead to your Daz3d Blender, and you're going to import your you're going to use the plugin to import your avatar, whichever either if you did an environment or if you did an avatar, it will be just ready to load. You won't have to look for it. It will be ready to load, and all you have to do is click that blue button for the last export to be imported into Blender. So I hope that's a little clear for you, but you can see it takes a minute to go through all of that. But this is where you would test out your animation and make sure that everything imported properly. I definitely suggest to do this so that your animation is not messed up before you start to go ahead and use the FBX for the clothing part. So just make sure that everything is working properly. So once everything is imported properly, you will see your timeline has your animation, and just make sure that it is the same amount of frames and at the same frame rate that you exported it out on. So you can see that I have 426, which is the same number that I had in Daz. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to run the animation. Clicking on and off on the armature that's going to make all of that highlighted stuff go away, so it's easier to see. But if you want to do anything with the rig, then you would need to select the armature. So right now we're just going to test out the animation and make sure that it works, and looking good. So we're not going to spend too much time here. We're just going to make sure that all of our animation works, and we will also check it in the cycles render section. That will show you that all of the materials came in the way that they're supposed to. All right, and we're on to the next phase. So now we're going to go ahead and open up CLO, and we're going to start to build a outfit. Maybe you already have one already done because you're creating a library of designs. I know you are, but maybe you already have one done, or maybe you have something like me that's going to just get modified, and everything's going to apply to this avatar. So basically, we're going to do a modification of this jumpsuit. And I'm going to speed this up. And then once we get to the export part, then I can show you about the export in CLO3D to get into Blender to merge with your exported avatar from Daz3d. Okay, thanks. Okay, so once you have your animation all rendered out and ready to go, this is where you can go ahead and start your export process. And I'm going to show you that in just a second. Test it out, make sure she's okay, not too much clipping and not too much pulling from her hands, which happens. But we're going to export as Alembic Ogawa. We're just going to save this file as Alembic, and we're going to make sure that we save it at 1%, and the 1% is just going to be sized correctly for Blender. We're going to put that export into our folder. We're going to let it export out, save, and then we're going to pull it into Blender and start the process of creating a animation. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the UV, and then I'm going to export it again. Right now the UV is a little bit too small and all over the place. So I'm going to set it to 0 to 1 coordinate on my UV map here and create its own map. Not always will the UV map get rid of the overlay, so you're going to have to do some positioning yourself and just make sure nothing is touching and that everything is maxed capacity as it can be. Give things enough room, and you can make it a little bit bigger if you want, and you can go ahead and save it to your file. I would just give it a name, the name of your project, and save it as UV. All of the maps will be saved out, so your roughness, your opacity, your metal, all those maps will be saved out. So now you can come back into Blender, into your animation, and if you go ahead and make sure the coordinates are the same, and you import the CLO3D file and the Daz animation should work together seamlessly. And because you imported your animation with the UV, that should come in if you did it properly. If you didn't do it properly, then it will be a little bit looking like this. So if you make sure to go ahead and do it properly, then you will see that it will come in very clear. So I'm going to export it one more time, because now I laid everything out. So I can go ahead and export it again as a lembic, and you'll see that when I bring it in after the UV map is set, it's sized correctly because it now matches the 1% of the UV map created by the Alembic file. So it looks like I pulled in the wrong map, and I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this a little bit. So now that we got our UV map all sorted out, our animation and our clothing are working together, we're going to go ahead and pull in an environment that we made in Daz. We're also going to use the Daz environment, Daz to Blender environment plugin to get our environment into our scene that we've already created with our animation. So right now, we're just going to do a few modifications. We can change the size. We can easily use all the Blender parameters to go ahead and change the size of everything, and then we should be ready to render a couple of images to make sure that we like what we see. Okay? So once you get all of your materials and all of your parameters set to what you like and what you want to see in your camera, you can add lights. We're going to add a few little lights, and then we're going to go ahead and test the render and see what we want to change and what we like and what we don't like. So this is pretty much one of the benefits of using Blender, is that it doesn't it's not so heavy on your equipment, which is why I personally like to use it for layouts. And the integration between Daz and Blender is excellent. So right now it's like got a few little glitches, but some things can be overlooked or worked around. And this is the workflow that I am really working on expanding and working on bringing all my assets and bringing all my things into Blender so that I can go ahead and manipulate them the way that I want. Blender is more flexible than Daz when it comes to things, and it's just pretty much easier to understand. Things are more you know, standard industry language, and you can find more tutorials about using stuff in Daz. These are just some of the new media supply plugins that I got that kind of set me up with the lights and set me up with backgrounds, etc. So you'll see some interesting things there, and then I'll just do a test render and I will show you the finished result. So here's my render coming up, guys, and I'm sorry about the previous video. My sound was really bad and I was kind of rambling along and took a little bit too long on some of the points. But as you can see, this tutorial is really good for creating nice visual stories with your animations from Daz and your clothing from CLO3D or Browseware, same workflow. And that's it. So here is the finished product. Thanks again for watching. Bye.